Thank you very much to the Croatian Chamber for your invitation. I would have loved to be there in person, but as you might imagine, we all live very busy lives, so unfortunately I could not come to beautiful Croatia. I will share my screen to present you the results on the ArchiMap on ADC, which is one of the research outcomes of the project. Yes, so I will follow up from the previous presentation. We will start with some general objectives of the research activities within the Archi project, and then we will go a little bit more in detail into the Archi map specific objective, structure and content, and finally the key learning from this study. As was previously mentioned in the presentation, the main goal of the project is that to promote a high-quality architectural solution for the built environment through the implementation of architectural design competition. Within this larger goal, the research activities are aimed at enhancing cross-border collaboration across Europe and raise awareness about particular necessities when it comes to architectural competition, as was mentioned earlier about the Architects' Needs report, and also to create a transnational competition culture through the circulation of ideas and exchange, of course. The project has developed three main study areas that address those objectives in a little bit more specific way. Of course, these three objectives of enhancing collaboration, raising awareness, and creating a transnational competition culture are, of course, somehow interrelated and overlapping. There's not such a clear-cut division, but each study refers to one in more detail. If you navigate the website of our key project, you can find the result of those research and activities as open access online. So please, later on, you will, if you like, take some more time to look in detail on what came out of these studies. Now let's go into the map itself. So let's say that the Archi map moves in two different lines or two levels. One is the national level that is aimed at somehow expanding the knowledge field on specific architectural design competition systems. So to identify strengths and areas of improvement at the national scale. But it also has an eye at the European level, which is probably the more relevant ambition of our project in general. So to focus on the way European policies and goals are integrated into architectural design competition systems, but also to examine what are the challenges and the opportunities for favoring a much more open competition market across borders, so at the European scale, to foster participation of architects to join competitions beyond the borders of their own country, but also to foster collaboration among different institutions and stakeholders. Finally, this study also wants to highlight good practice examples in competition processes coming from the representative countries of our consortium that you see indicated in the map. The methods of this research move on two different levels. On the one hand, especially in a preliminary phase of our research, we have focused mostly on quantitative information provided by, particularly by the chambers that are part of our partner consortium. And with this information, we mostly looked at the characteristic of architecture professionals in each of the partner countries. But that was also an occasion for us to understand in which countries there is a much more consistent collection of data and analysis of what happens within the profession, and specifically what happens in relation to architectural design competitions. So how many competitions are organized each year, what are the trends, what type of competitions are most popular in which countries or not. And this is a first phase, let's say, of our research, the quantitative one. Later on, throughout the course of the project, we also put the emphasis on the fact that architectural competitions are also a matter of contextual features, so traditions, cultures, practices, which are not necessarily only expressed by numbers and quantities, but also is important for us to understand the qualitative dimension of competitions, and that was actually the main focus of our research approach through conversation in the partners consortium, but also through interviews with experts that I will mention in a minute. So for who we consider this study relevant? We consider that the Archi map on ADCs is a source of information for all the professionals involved in the architectural field, not only architects who take part in architectural competitions, but also professional chambers, public bodies, representative, other organizations. So in synthesis, all those who are committed to the long-term improvement of the quality of our built environment, especially through a quality of architectural services at the European scale. We will now look a little bit briefly into the structure of this report and its main contents. The Archi map on ADC is structured around 3 main chapters that correspond also to the objectives of the study that I mentioned earlier. The first chapter is that which maps somehow the national context of each country that participated in the project. In this first chapter, we have produced several maps to compare what is happening, more than to compare, actually, to have a comprehensive overview of what is happening in the different countries that took part in our project. The quantitative information included in the maps look at the characteristics of architecture professionals, so registered architects, registered offices, the composition of registered offices, building on the data collected by the Architects' Councils of Europe ACE surveys. We also looked into the participation rate of architects in architectural competitions in the different countries. This data, the comparative maps that you see here on the left, are then somehow detailed by more information in what we call country profiles. So textual information that details what are the general features of the competition in each specific country, what are the trends, how this has changed over time, but also what are the legislative, regulatory base behind each competition systems, and as well as the role of chambers in the organization, implementation, and regulation of competitions. The second chapter instead is that which looks into the more European dimension of competitions. And this is where we benefited from the role of experts in the field of competitions that joined our project in a series of interview sessions. Different representatives from the countries which are part of the Archi project have contributed with their knowledge sharing. Those are in particular architects, chamber members, ADC managers, organizers, policy experts. Of course, also in this case, we provide a clear-cut division between these categories, but in reality, they are much more overlapping, let's say. Obviously, also experts from Croatia took part in the interview session, and I can take this occasion to directly thank in person Maja Kireta, Elena Gnifis-Schaps, Kata Marunica, Arvoje Niric, and Roman Silje, who took part in the interview and dedicated time and knowledge to enrich our project, and their insight was definitely very valuable for us. Based on the outcome of those 40 interviews with international experts, we built the chapter around 5 main parameters of analysis. Those included the regulation of design competitions, and with a subsection focusing on regulations and sustainability in ADCs. Later on, we focused on accessibility. So all the problems related in particular to access to competition for young and starting offices, small size offices, but also to access to competitions beyond national borders. So the lens to read this chapter is with a focus on Europe and not only to country-specific problematics, but also what makes things more complicated when we are looking at it at European scale. We also focus on the process of competition itself. How is it defined by quality and transparency principles? And what are the benefits for different stakeholders involved in the competition process? So clients, of course, organizers, but also participant architects, and let's say at the larger scale, of course, also the inhabitants of European cities. Finally, the third chapter analyzes good practices examples in European competitions. When I say Europeans, of course, keep in mind we are speaking about the countries which are part of the ARHI consortium. We have debated in our group about the use of terms, no, good practice vis-a-vis the most used best practice. And we wanted to emphasize that when analyzing a case that we consider particularly successful or a good example, we can never speak in terms of absolute applicability of every single principle or every single process of competitions. So we also, in this case, select some good example with the awareness that the applicability of rules, principles, regulations, and so on is closely related to cultural, legislative, and traditional context of the specific countries where a competition was implemented. The lesson we learned from the study, of course, this is a booklet of more than 100 pages, so I'm trying to go to really to the core of what we consider relevant from this study. One aspect that we should consider is, of course, that of the limitation of this study alone, which does not have the ambition to unpack every single detail of the competition process of each single country that have participated in the study, but rather we try to call the attention on specific areas that might need improvement or that can represent an example of good practice for other contexts. It's also important to remember that this study is complemented as well by the other research that has been developed in the ARHI projects, such as the Architects Needs Report or the glossary. One of the first takeaway message or key lessons that we can extract from the ARHI map is the relevance and the importance of dedicated regulatory instruments which are designed for the implementation of architectural design competitions instead of regular procurement methods. We have also included in our booklet an annex table that synthesizes and collects the main regulations and guidelines for competitions which are adopted in each of the partner countries. And we have regarded those regulations in relation to the obligation or not to organize the competitions. And we have noticed that the binding or non-binding nature of dedicated laws or guidelines for competition and their connection to public procurement has a strong impact on the consistent implementation of ADCs over time as a necessary pre-procurement phase. But on the other hand, of course, this might sound quite obvious, but the presence or like the binding presence of a guideline for competitions affects the quality and the transparency of the competition process itself and sets precise standards and requirements that every competition has to stick to. The second key message that we extract from our study is the quality of ADC process is mostly related to good questions and good judgment, we could say, where for good questions, we refer to the care and the good preparation that precedes the elaboration of a clear competition brief. And the clear competition brief is one that focuses on the uniqueness of the ideas, of the design ideas. With that, we mean, of course, to bring the focus on the idea rather than on additional paperwork, bureaucracy, requests, or references, projects, or what are the characteristics of the office and so on, but rather put the core attention on the design, on the concept itself. And this is a topic that should deserve particular attention, especially in the debate, also in the debate and the conversation with clients and ADC organizers way before, in the preparation phase, even preparation phase of the brief itself. If we keep the focus on the idea, central on the idea, that is also how ADC can become a tool to foster sustainability in architecture practice, with the awareness that there is need for openness in the way competitions questions are asked, particularly in the case of sustainability. This means clarifying which aspects of sustainability are crucial for that specific competition and what kinds of question can be expected that a design entry can answer. That means awareness of the limitation of a competition stage that cannot yet answer all questions. Then why do we insist to foster a culture of EU open and accessible ADCs? Our main stance as a Archi project consortium is that major openness in EU-level competitions allows for a broader and more varied range of solutions, with the result, of course, of fostering innovation in the architectural quality of our cities. In other words, this means also recognizing the role of competitions in promoting and guaranteeing high-quality Bakultur across Europe. So now, to conclude, just 3 key messages to synthesize our findings. The first one is the long-term benefits of ADCs for multiple stakeholders, and this was mentioned also in the previous presentation, that the quality of winning solution produced by an ADC also justifies investment in terms of additional time and budget for design competitions when those are considered in relation to a total investment. So not only a quality benefit, of course, that's the primary one, but also an economic benefit, as further studies developed by the Austrian Chamber are inquiring. Second point is also, especially if we are speaking in terms of EU scale, a European scale, or EU open competitions, we have to believe in the circulation of architectural ideas as a first step against biased preconception and also distrust, which generally feeds more risk avoidance kind of approaches in both in the questions of competitions, but also in the judgment of competition entries. And finally, what also mentioned in a couple of slides back, the major openness in European design competition can enhance innovation in the way architecture is produced or is developed, so in architecture practices. The study, the ArchiMap on ADC, is not a concluded effort in our view, but is a starting point. So to keep on developing knowledge about what is happening in the competition systems of European countries. This is why also we developed this report supported by an additional tool, which is the online interactive map. It was also mentioned earlier in the previous presentation. The online map provides some additional links and tools to explore what happens in each country, and our plan is that to integrate the map also with the finding of the report as well. And so that hopefully this tool can grow in the future and provide even more insights on the competition culture of Europe. And I will leave it at that. And if you will have any additional question, I would be happy to answer them. Thank you very much.